This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch for Tuesday, March 12th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, no impeachment. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says President Donald Trump isn't worth impeaching, but some left-wing Democrats still say it may be an option. And leaving Venezuela, the U.S. pulls its last staff members from its embassy as the socialist economy collapses in chaos. Plus, a Muslim nation invites a delegation of evangelical pastors for an official visit, and one of the pastors calls it an opportunity for the kingdom. And some important ways women can overcome mental health issues. Those stories and more are ahead in today's edition of Newswatch. We want to begin with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying it is just not worth it to attempt to impeach President Donald Trump. She told the Washington Post, unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country. Reaction from fellow Democrats on Pelosi's statement is mixed. Some believe there isn't enough evidence against the president or public support for impeachment. But New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez told the Washington Examiner she disagrees with the speaker. Cortez says that Pelosi's view could change if something comes out in the Mueller report. And other new members of the party also think the president should be investigated and impeached if good reason for it is found. President Trump has unveiled a new budget, the largest in U.S. history. His $4.7 trillion proposal includes an increase in defense spending, but cuts in most domestic programs. Democrats in the House are already saying the president's budget is dead on arrival. The national debt currently stands at $22 trillion in 2016. Candidate Trump promised to eliminate the national debt in 8 years. Acting Budget Director Russ Vought says that will not occur for another 15 years. So what happened to that promise is the question.
Congress has been ignoring the president's spending reductions for the last 2 years. It's only now in our third budget that they're willing to have a conversation about the national debt. We've been trying to have it since we got to office.
And Gary Lane has been following this story for us. He joins us right now with more. So there's good news for the military and veterans in this budget. What is it?
Well, $750 billion is what the president wants for defense spending. That's up from $716 billion this year. If he gets that, that means in 3 years, the defense spending has gone up $160 billion. And of course, that means more ships. That means more readiness for the troops. Also, this year, the troops received a wage increase of about 2.6%. But for veterans, it means about 8% increase in the VA budget. And as you know, Ephraim, this year the president has tried to allow veterans to go outside the VA if they need medical care that they can't get at the VA hospitals.
Now, we mentioned there are cuts to domestic programs. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, big cuts, about 5% across the board. That's about $30 billion. And the biggest cut, one of the biggest areas, is the Environmental Protection Agency, a cut of about 31%. And Democrats are certainly not liking that. In addition to that, we're seeing other cuts in areas like agriculture, about 15%, 12% for education. So there's going to be a big battle ahead with the Democrats on those issues.
And what are members of Congress saying thus far?
Well, it's dead on arrival. Many are saying it's dead on arrival, and Bernie Sanders called it cruel. And he said that this is really a budget for the military-industrial complex, for corporate CEOs, billionaires, and Wall Street.
And we know a big sticking point is the border wall.
The border wall is a big sticking point, and as you know, the president wants $8 billion in funding for the border wall. That's about $3 billion more than he asked last year. That led, or this year actually, a previous budget, that led to a government shutdown. So another one may be ahead.
All right, Gary, thank you so much. We will continue to watch.
Very contentious issue.
The U.S. is pulling its remaining staff members from its embassy in Venezuela. The decision came as Venezuela struggles to restore electricity from blackouts around the country. The socialist country is in an economic mess. Its currency is now in a free fall with prices skyrocketing. A month's wage in Venezuela now equals about $4, not nearly enough for people to live on. So how are Venezuelans making it? Chuck Holton went to the border town of Cúcuta, Colombia, to find out.
Imagine if your paycheck got cut by 90% every 3 to 6 months. That's the world Venezuelans have been living in since hyperinflation took hold in their country in 2016. The Venezuelan bolivar is now the least valued currency in the world, with black market exchange rates off the charts. over 4 million bolivars to the dollar and sinking fast. That means starving Venezuelans have to do whatever they can to survive. I was just here talking to my Venezuelan friend Roberto Sanchez, and I asked him if he had any Venezuelan money that he could show me. And so he ran off for a second, and he came back and brought me this stack of bills, this stack of money, look at that, and handed it to me and said, take it. The real scary question is, how do people survive when you can have all the money in the world and it literally won't buy you a thing?
Unfortunately, the people who cross this bridge aren't just looking for food and medicine. What they're searching for is hope.
Jaime Ayala works helping sick Venezuelans get care in Colombia because the medical care in his country is almost non-existent. His wife Esperanza works with him.
We see children sleeping in the streets. There is just so much need. People are in distress because there is no medicine at all. So we try to help get their needs met.
So this is the illegal way to get across from Venezuela into Colombia. It's called La Trocha. These guys are bringing products either into Colombia to sell or back into Venezuela, things that aren't available there, things like tires, things like medicines. Coming across from Venezuela, we're seeing a lot of scrap metal that they sell over in the Colombian side. We see things like copper wire because people are ripping the wires out of the walls and wrapping them up and bringing them over here to sell just to get enough money to eat. Leonel Castillo and his wife Sara work with their church to help the poorest migrants coming to Colombia.
The wealthiest Venezuelans have already escaped to Spain or Miami. The middle class is going to Ecuador or Chile. But the poorest and most vulnerable are coming to Cucuta.
I took a walk in downtown Cucuta late one night, and there were hundreds of women selling the only thing they had to sell, their bodies. These 3 teen girls I met have been working on the street for the past year, starting before 2 of them were even 18. They say it's terrible work, but better than starving.
It's bad because we're always getting guys who are drunk and sometimes they abuse us. We come out here every night, but sometimes don't get any business because there are so many women out here.
This is no kind of life. It's tiring, it's ugly, but what can you do when you have no future?
It's amazing how many similarities I've noticed between what's going on in Venezuela and what I was seeing in Syria. Now, the stuff in Syria was definitely worse, but it's similar in some ways in that just the level of desperation. You have people that literally just they run out of options. And one of the best ways you could illustrate that is by meeting prostitutes who are actually mothers with families and husbands back in Venezuela, but they're coming over here to Cucuta and selling their bodies for just a little bit of money in order to make enough money to survive. And so, before you go judging, you might ask yourself, just how far would you go to make sure that your children could eat at night, to make sure that your children could get the medical care that they needed? Castillo and his family are doing what they can to help some of these girls get out of this life and give them a hope and a future.
It's sad, yes, but it's an opportunity for God to manifest himself in the works of his people. And we know that their most basic needs are spiritual. What they need is Jesus.
Chuck Holton, CBN News, Cucuta, Colombia.
India is facing a dramatic rise in Christian persecution. The newest figures from a human rights group shows that cases of hate and violence against India's minority Christians jumped 57% in the first 2 months of this year. That is compared to 49% last year. According to the Evangelical Fellowship of India, 77 incidents were documented against Christians between January and February of 2019. That is in comparison to just 49 cases in 2018. Violent attacks against Christians have steadily increased since a radical Hindu party took control of India's government in 2014. Open Doors has ranked India as the 10th worst country in the world for Christian persecution. Coming up, why would a Muslim nation invite a delegation of evangelical Christian pastors for an official visit? We've got that story when we come back. Now there's a look right here at our top trending stories at CBNNews.com.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphan's Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
The Shiite Muslim majority of the country of Azerbaijan recently invited more than a dozen evangelical pastors for an official visit to the nation. But why would that country's president be interested in evangelical Christians? CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell takes a look.
Azerbaijan is located on the Caspian Sea, bounded on the north by Russia and south by Iran. But this former Soviet republic, where Shiite and Sunni Muslims intermarry, and Christians and Jews live freely, believes that tolerance is the way to go.
Dialogue is very important during this time because in different parts of the world, we are witnessing lots of conflicts and wars, which makes it necessary for establishing dialogue.
Government Minister Mubarez Gurbanli hosted the group of 15 evangelical leaders and a rabbi.
We are part of the Muslim countries, but despite this fact, we are also home for 3 different religions. That's the importance of this event.
Gurbanli told CBN News his country is leading this dialogue because of its history. Azerbaijan hosted many religions over the centuries, including Judaism and Christianity, before Islam arrived 800 years ago.
That's why history gives us a good opportunity to bring up the ideas of tolerance and mutual understanding.
It started when Azeri President Ilham Aliyev invited American Rabbi Mark Schneier to bring evangelical leaders to his country. Schneier, who has been working to improve Jewish-Muslim relations for 15 years, teamed up with Robert Stearns to create a better understanding between Christians and Muslims. Going to Azerbaijan was the natural first step.
There are 57 Muslim nations. Azerbaijan has led the effort in terms of presenting a more progressive, a more centrist, a more inclusive, a more welcoming Islam that is supportive of the State of Israel.
I believe it's an extraordinary moment in the kingdom of God where God is moving behind the scenes in ways that we can't imagine.
The group met in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. Their first stop was the state cemetery and the Alley of Martyrs, where civilians massacred in a Soviet crackdown in 1990 are buried. The Grand Mufti of the Caucasus region told the group establishing relationships is not based on religion, but on common humanity. He later hosted the group for dinner at his palace, and the pastors were moved.
What really has surprised me the most is the level of communication, relationship, and it seems like genuine friendship between the various major faiths that are in this country. You just don't see that. Even in the United States, we seem to have a lot of intolerance right now.
Schneier said he believes this is a first step toward reconciliation between Muslims and evangelicals. Stearns called it an opportunity for the kingdom.
This could be a moment of wonderful blessing for Azerbaijan. So I'm inviting the church, the Christian church worldwide, to pray with me that this is an hour for the glory of the Lord to come to this nation.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News.
Still ahead, a surprising health fact. Women are more likely to suffer from a range of mental health issues than men. We're going to take a look at those problems and what they can do about them. Stay with us.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphan's Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
Here's a health shocker. Women are more likely than men to suffer from a whole host of mental health issues. CBN Health reporter Lori Johnson recently interviewed women's health expert Dr. Sarah Gottfried, who says the good news is there are lots of ways to turn that around.
So you recently just wrote this wonderful new book called The Brain Body Diet, which talks specifically about the woman's brain. And believe it or not, folks, women's brains and men's brains are different. We're not saying whose is better, but they are definitely different. In fact, if you have just the brain scans, 8 out of 10 times you can see what the gender of the person is just by looking at their brain scan. So how are men and women's brains different?
Well, they're different in a few ways. There's a structural difference, there's a molecular difference, and then there's a functional difference. And these differences add up to some of the changes that we see between men and women in their risk of disease. So women have double the risk of depression. We have double the risk of insomnia. We have double the risk of Alzheimer's disease, higher rates of autoimmunity, higher rates of anxiety. But let's go back to how these differences are manifest. And I like that you said, we're not going to say one is better.
Although we know, wink, wink.
So we know that they're different. And the reason why I care about this difference is because when you understand the difference, it helps the women who suffer more so that we can figure out how to solve it. So one of the big differences is structurally. Women have a bigger hippocampus. So the hippocampus is where you do emotional regulation and also memory consolidation. It's where memories are formed. So there's a big difference between men and women, but that also means since women have a bigger hippocampus, we're more vulnerable to toxins, to eating too much sugar, to too much stress. Men have a bigger amygdala. That's the part of the brain that looks for threat in the environment.
The impulsivity.
Impulsivity, exactly. So there's those differences. Probably the biggest difference is hormones. So sex hormones are different. Women have more estrogen, we have more progesterone, we have less testosterone compared to men. And that's why men do so much better with weight loss than women do.
Frustrating.
And then there's brain chemistry differences. So these are called neurotransmitters. Those relate again to the hormones, because hormones can change. You know, for instance, estrogen can change your oxytocin level. That's one of the reasons why women do better with oxytocin. If you hug a man, you have to hug them 3 times as long to get the same bump in oxytocin. So you have to remember that with the guys that you're hugging. And then there's functional difference. So functional differences are crucial too, because women tend to, we tend to multitask better. We tend to, we're more vulnerable to stress. And this is a big issue because I feel like, you know, sometimes we talk about stress and people's eyes glaze over. And I just think it's essential that you have a strategy for how to rise above the stress.
And, you know, you talk about things like Alzheimer's, depression, stress, anger. These are all things that I see in so many women in my life. So many women I love who are miserable, women who struggle with being overweight, and all of these things, and people who are just overwhelmed and generally literally feel that they can't handle their lives. And it's heartbreaking, really, that this is going on. And what I love about your book is that you offer practical tips to correct that. This is not something that's just happening to women on an individual basis. This is common with all women, especially women who are eating a lot of the processed foods and the sugars and the terrible diet, the sad diet, standard American diet. Talk about how diet influences the way we think and even our mood.
Well, this is a crucial piece because, you know, an important part of the brain-body connection is how the gut is talking to the brain. So this is known as the gut-brain axis. The food is the most important driver of your gut health. So if we look at, for instance, the microbiome, this is the set of microbes that you have in your gut and their DNA. The most important influence on your gut is food. Number 2 is stress, but let's stick with the food. So you want to feed the good bugs. You do that by eating prebiotics, by eating certain vegetables, things like artichokes, Jerusalem artichokes, onions, garlic. Those things feed the good bacteria. You want to be eating about 1 pound of vegetables per day. That's essential to get the fiber that you need to stabilize your blood sugar, which helps with all of these things that we talk about. So with blood sugar, if you have a problem with blood sugar, and you may not even know, you may have prediabetes or, you know, slightly rising blood sugar, that leads to cognitive decline, where you walk into a room and you can't remember why. It leads to brain fog, leads to that sense of overwhelm and anxiety.
And you can watch the rest of the interview to learn more, including why spending time with gal pals is one of the many ways to reduce that stress. That is tonight on Healthy Living, and it's only on the CBN News channel at 9:30 Eastern. Coming up, how CBN's Operation Blessing is helping families in Honduras by providing them with clean water. Stay with us.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
CBN's Operation Blessing providing clean water to families in Honduras. Families like those of 9-year-old Sangi, who continually suffered from waterborne illnesses. The water system near their village was contaminated with dirt, worms, leaves, and bacteria. Operation Blessing installed a state-of-the-art water project that delivers clean drinking water to taps located throughout the village. Now Sangi and other families can quench their thirst quickly and without fear. Now, you can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to its website, that is ob.org. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable, and I hope this message inspires you, and I hope you'll share it with those you know. Love is so much more than a feeling. Love is a choice, and you choose to love daily. With every act you take, ask yourself, what's really driving the decision? Hopefully, the answer is always love. With that word, make this a terrific Tuesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Thank you so much for watching. Remember that you can always find more on the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And you can watch CBN News anytime throughout the day at the CBN News channel. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you will join us again right here next time. Make it a terrific Tuesday, everybody.